Good evening. We will call the Lakeshore Hospital Authority Board of Trustees order. Any staff or trustee addition or deletions to the agenda and/or confusion?
Mr. Chairman, staff would like to request that the trustees amend the agenda to allow for one, a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial report, which ended September 30th, 2021. That, of course, is the audit. And I would like to have a few discussion items with the trustees. I'd like to give you an update on the meeting with Hope Bridges this past week, an update on where we are with the bid to raise Lakeshore Hospital, an update on the June 20th special call meeting, and also an update on my visit to the city of Lake City, July 5th. I said June 20th, July 20th meeting.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Move to public comments, Ms. Limley. And just a reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Okay, starting now. My concern is this board here really doesn't need to be here. And I think this board needs to look at having a resolution that would allow the taxpayers of Columbia County, the voters, to decide if they wish to have the authority continue. This was something Senator Baxley tried to push through the legislature several years ago, that you're a government, gubernatorial appointed board, and taxpayers have no say so. He wanted a board that if you were appointed by the governor's office, that you have some representation. I have no control of you guys, but I only wish that you guys would consider having a resolution to dissolve this board. You've kicked the can down for 2 years of a vacant hospital. It's costing upward between 50,000 to 70 to 80,000, spending a lot of money for nothing. And I hope you guys consider that.
Thank you. Morrison.
How are you guys doing? Let me say my name or anything.
If you don't mind.
Garrett Morrison. Just talking about the lake. I've been here a couple times, and just the hospital building and the surrounding buildings. For just info for you guys, so you guys can know who I am. Me and the people you've seen been coming, and these two people have been doing a prayer meeting for the last year and a half around the lake, underneath the pavilion, in front of the bull, wherever. And we've been really just been blessed to be able to see the opportunity that God's used us to be able to be a blessing to others, and just to see the different type of people and the different type of needs in this community. And it's been a really big blessing, but just the opportunity just to look at this lake and the facility. We're looking for the ability to be donated. It is a hotbed. We believe this area for a revival. We believe God is pouring out his spirit more than ever. And you look at around this area, it says, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge." And I've heard little to any mention about spiritual attacking this issue. I've heard a lot about the school. That's good. Not against that. Heard about the Meridian thing. That's good. That's an emotional and that's a practical need. But I didn't hear nothing about a spiritual need. And I think we have a spiritual issue that needs to be addressed spiritually. Where it says we don't wage against the flesh, but against spirit and principalities. So we're looking to use that facility as a church, but not only as a church, but something that meets the practical needs, because that's how you show the love of God, is by helping the homeless, by a food kitchen, food pantry, and other things such as that. And we also got some people that are in our group. A young lady that comes all the time, she's really good with mental health, has a degree, has a master's in psychology, is on her way, has some connections. And so also the emotional, physical, that can just take anybody who's willing and has a heart and compassion, but then also the spiritual aspect of it. And I think right now, this is the time to really look at it you have kids in this city, you have kids, you have grandkids, and people are really in need of hope. And I don't think we can just attack the symptoms. I think the real issue, the real root of the problem is a spiritual one. And in order to combat that, it's going to take some forerunners, people that are willing to stand in the gap and to intercede. And I myself have had the ability to be able to connect with various types of people, even at our prayer meetings, you know, from race to age to you name it, just different type of backgrounds. And I think that's what the city needs to see is a unity, and then also to put on events to be able to just give the kids something to do, something for the youth, you know, keep them out of trouble. And there's a lot of things we can begin with. I have a proposal, or me and our group do. It's for Remnant Ministries. You guys have that. I just want to bring it to your awareness so you guys can look at it. But I believe now is the time, and this is the promised land, and it's time to slay some giants. And I hope you guys can get behind and realize that this is an opportunity to join together to do so.
Thank you, sir. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stu Logan, the Columbia County Observer. Nice to see you tonight. I have 3 things on here, and in addition, sort of where you're just on. Mr. Morrison mentioned the food pantry. It's a good idea. The food kitchen, and that's a good idea. What Mr. Morrison didn't mention was the food truck. You will recall, a year and a half ago, I have to check my records. The hospital authority spent thousands of dollars on legal fees. Nothing new for the authority. On a food truck. I'm dealing with Lake City, doing the special rules and for the food truck. I was just wondering whatever happened to that food truck that the hospital authority spent indigent care money, all the money could go to indigent care. And they got wasted on thousands and thousands of dollars, again, on legal fees. So I thank Mr. Morrison for his comments and shaking that loose from my mind.
you're saying that we spent money on the food truck?
You spent money on all the rules, regulations, and what you had in legal fees to get a food truck into the authority when you were the chairman of the board, I believe.
I thought you meant we.
No, you didn't buy the food truck yet.
I was
Probably a
unaware.
good idea. You do it if you don't, maybe you could sell some food. I have one thing we're following up with Mr. Cobaline. Last meeting, he was not here. And I recall that he thanked, when he was on the YouTube, he thanked somebody, I would have to go back and listen, for permission to be able to attend the meeting virtually. But his contract doesn't allow for that. And I don't know anybody that could give him permission to move outside of his contract. He has a law firm, the new contract, his first contract said he had to be here. And then the new contract was modified with other things that he didn't have to be here, but somebody from his law firm, as you know, Mr. Cobaline Senior was here recently. But there's nothing in his contract that allowed him to attend virtually, and nothing that allows him to get permission. So I'll be looking forward to his next bill. I hope he's not going to charge the authority for something that nobody had the right to give him permission for. My next thing, I thank Sonia and Dale for making sure I got the additions today on the agenda. That was nice. Maybe you could also post those on the internet so people that everybody would know that there have been additions added to the agenda. I think that would be a good idea. I know you could do that. And that's all I have. Thank you very much. I look forward to the rest of the meeting.
Anybody online has any public comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion carries. New business. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is a request for the trustees to amend the Lakeshore Hospital Authority Personnel Policy Manual we are requesting that the Juneteenth National Independence Day holiday declared by the federal government be added to the list of days observed by the authority. That day would be on June 19th, or in the event of a conflict, whatever day it's nationally observed. And we would ask that you make this retroactive to 2022.
Federal government's done it. I know the city of Lake City's done it.
County's done it.
I think we should follow the federal government's.
I think we should. It doesn't do any good to find them.
Well, we can't get computer support on that day. We don't get mail on that day. It just becomes somewhat of an issue.
This is the board.
I move that we go ahead and recognize Juneteenth. Is that what they call it? Juneteenth. And make it retroactive to June 1st of 2022.
Got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say
Mr. Chair, question, would that require holiday pay for this past Juneteenth holiday?
Well, what has occurred is the employees were off, but they took a day of leave. What I would like to do is to reestablish the day of leave to them and then treat it as if it was a regular holiday for them.
So it's only paperwork.
Yeah, it's just paper.
Just paperwork?
does that need to be included in the motion? Mr. Goodall?
I think the motion, if it's going to pass, it should pass contingent upon legal review. The issue that needs to be looked at is there's a state statute that states that a person cannot be compensated for work that has already been performed.
Right.
And in this case, leave that has already been taken, and whether or not that is also work, or and whether or not there are any other issues of how that statute may apply in this retroactive compensation.
So we want to make a motion to recognize Juneteenth as a holiday and make it retroactive pending legal review. Your recommendation.
That would be my recommendation to the motion.
Would you like to amend your
Let me
restate your?
restate my motion, making everything else null and void. From this date forward, let us recognize Juneteenth as a federal holiday, paid holiday.
And you're stopping your motion there.
And for the year 2022, let us give one extra paid day's leave to our employees.
Mr. Overline, is that sufficient?
That does not run afoul of the severance and bonus plan.
I have a question now. We didn't have a motion.
We're not doing questions.
Well, this is the motion. Nobody knew what the motion was going to be. You have a right.
It hasn't been seconded. Nobody can talk about it.
I'll second that motion.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Overline, is it necessary to let members of the public question items on the agenda?
SB 50. Nobody knew the motion.
Well, they've had an opportunity to make comments on the agenda.
Yes.
Right.
I believe what Mr. Wilker is going to say is that he didn't know what the item was, or some other comments. And I've heard those comments before on many occasions from him at other venues. And I have not seen any law to support his reason, but nonetheless, it would certainly be up to the chair in its discretion to determine whether or not there's been an opportunity to speak on the motion.
Mr. Wilker, tonight and tonight only, I will give you and every other person in this room one opportunity to speak on one item. So if you want to speak on this item,
Well, I don't, whatever item it is, you need to make rules in this place.
we
so
have
People
rules.
understand what they
The
are.
rules say that at the beginning of the meeting, I will
Uh-huh.
announce if you get to speak.
But
on each
nobody knew what the
individual.
motion was. The proposition
Doesn't
before
matter.
the
You
board
knew,
changed.
you knew exactly what we were discussing.
No, I didn't know what the proposition before the board is something
I'm sorry.
definite. But let me ask the question, because that's what I'm up here.
This is your one.
Whatever you say, I'm not here to argue.
I just want to follow the rules. I
No,
want
you're not following, me, but that's fine.
No, I didn't.
We're fine. I'm not here to argue. So you made a second motion now. Change it from what they call the meeting to what everybody call, what they call Juneteenth, to what everybody calls it. You phrase that. And now you're gonna make it a regular holiday for the staff. But you mentioned something about the bonus. I don't understand. Somebody said something about a bonus. It's gonna be a paid holiday. Is that the motion?
It'll be a paid holiday. We're gonna add, give them each staff member one extra paid day off for this year.
For this year?
Correct.
Yes.
This is 2022. the rules.
So they're gonna be paid for the holiday from last month, or just for 2022, for the upcoming?
They're gonna get an extra paid day off
For when?
for 2022. It's very simple.
So this is-
2022, this year that we're in right now, the calendar says today is
Right.
July 11th,
I got it.
2022. We're in 2022.
Right?
Each staff member will get an additional paid day off in this calendar year.
Oh, they're taking anytime. It's not.
They can take it whenever they want.
That's all I want to know. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
you're
Mr. Chairman.
welcome. Is there any further discussion? Did you want to use your?
Yes, my one shot.
Yes, ma'am.
How does this affect the personnel manual? Don't you have to make some type of motion to amend the personnel manual or personal holidays?
I believe that's what we were doing. It's
Well,
for the
you
personnel
didn't-
policy manual.
No, it was just unclear.
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. It is to amend the personnel policy manual to,
That's not what the motion stated.
Mr. Attorney, since that was the item being discussed on the agenda, is that clear enough that the motion was to amend?
I didn't understand the speaker's comments. But if we need to revise the motion, if we needed to, I would offer her another opportunity to tell us everything else that she would like to know. Otherwise, the motion was sufficient legally. But if I misunderstood her, you would want to give her an opportunity to state on the recording of every document she wants amended. There may be other documents that I don't understand her to point out that need amended.
Brandon,
Yes, ma'am.
in all of the places that I have ever worked, when there is a change in anything to do with personnel, the next step is, after the change is completed, then there is a change in the personnel manual to accommodate the new change. Therefore, I do not feel, based on precedent, that it needs to be stated in the motion.
Mr. Chair, was personnel policy the only thing that Ms. Winley wanted amended? Or were there other documents
I'm not
of
sure.
the authority she'd like amended?
Mr. Williams, I think, was requesting for it only to be amended in the personnel policy manual.
One bullet point, adding that one day.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion carries. Mr. Williams,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, trustees, the next item, as you are aware, we have placed the cash reserves of the authority in certificates of deposit. We select the financial institution based on a bid process. And so currently, those certificates are being held by Drummond Bank at an interest rate of 0.5%. And what has happened in the last few months is, of course, we've gone into a large inflationary cycle. And the Federal Reserve has increased rates. And as a result of that, some of the vehicles which we can legally invest public funds in are paying some pretty good interest rates. So I'm specifically speaking of US Treasury notes. And I pull this information this afternoon because it does change quite frequently. A 1-year US Treasury is 2.969% as of this afternoon. A 2-year Treasury is 3.074% as of this afternoon. And a 3-year Treasury is 3.116%. And I can tell you that all three of those were up a few hundredths of a percentage point from yesterday. So we're basically in an increasing market. A lot of that has to do with, and I know some won't like this, but it has to do with foreign investment, some things that, other governments are doing, etc. But the long and short of it is we are currently locked in to what was a good rate at the time, but compared to other investments that we can legally participate in, not good investments today. So I have looked at what we would have to pay in early withdrawal penalties in order to cash in the CDs. And we, of course, would be penalized. And for all of our CDs, it would total around $21,000 in penalties. However, if you look at $17 million and you figure 3%, you can easily see where it doesn't take long for a monthly distribution of interest to far exceed what the penalty would be. So I'm here today to tell you that, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, I have discussed this with Richard Powell, it appears to be in the authority's best interest to let's look at shifting from CDs to treasuries. Now, that will open up a whole new conversation. There's two ways to buy treasuries. One is you can buy them direct, and the other is you can buy them through a broker. Any one of us, anybody in the audience can go to directsecurities.com and buy treasuries. That's not what we really want to do, because we like the fact when you go through a broker, you get a statement, you get someone you can call if you have an issue or a problem, get them on the phone, etc. There are a number of brokers that issue or will sell treasuries. I don't know how I can just sole source one, and I'm not even advocating that we do that. But what I am advocating is that you authorize me to seek from those people within the general area a cost of fees as to what they may charge, if any, for administering securities on behalf of the authority. And then at our next meeting, I think it would be advantageous, once we know everything there is to know, that we early retire the CDs we have and transfer the money to US Treasuries. I've seen nothing in the past few weeks that would tell me you've got a better option.
You suggesting that we do all of it or part of it? Or
I think we should do it all. I think it's just way too much difference in the earnings, the interest rate, to not do it. We're going to go from, technically, you're going to start generating $500,000 plus a year in interest. It's been a long time since you've been able to do that.
I have curiosity, if there is a penalty for getting out of a CD, is there a penalty for getting out of a treasury?
The way treasuries work, you can retire them early and they will buy them out at whatever the market rate is at the time. So the risk you run is if you invest it, let's say you bought a 1 year at 2.969 and you're 10 months into it and you decide that, hey, you've got to have cash flow, so we're going to cash in that treasury, they pay you on the basis of what it is that day. So if it's failed and now it's 2%, then that's what they're going to pay you. But by the same token, if it's now 3.1, they pay you the higher rate.
Do we have to do this in the form of an RFP or RFQ?
I don't think so. You know, we've had a lot of discussion, excluding Mr. Kennedy because he's new on the board, but we've all been through at least 2 different opportunities where we really got schooled and educated about what generally accepted accounting principles and what investment strategies the state recommends and et cetera. You may remember the first time we bid out CDs, we had a lot of people who disagreed with the way that was done, so on and so forth. But the thing that we've learned from that is that we have to periodically show competitiveness. And what I would do is just simply say, this is the strategy. What will you charge in terms of fees and costs to do this for us? And we base the decision on that.
Thoughts, wishes of the board?
Sounds like a good idea to me, because we'll have the different areas to look at, different people to look at.
Yeah.
So,
Is it something we can task Dick with?
I sure hope y'all will. That's fine with me.
Right? I'm like, can he give me like an overview, I'd sure like him to sit there and give me his thoughts on
Well,
it.
now he will be here at the next meeting.
Okay.
and Stephen, I'm sure that he will have something to say about it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's. Okay.
I agree 100%. Would it be pushing you, Mr. Williams, if we can we add that to the agenda for the 20th, or is that too early? I don't want to push you.
We've not published yet, right? Yeah. No, I think we might can. We might can do that.
Even, let me ask you this, with the knowing that the Fed is going to increase in another 2 weeks anyway, will that maybe help increase?
It definitely could. That was primarily the conversation that Richard and I were having today.
Right.
But, you know, what's the strategy? We can,
He who hesitates is lost.
we think if we wait, it'll go up again, but I can't guarantee that.
What action is needed to push that forward?
You are authorizing staff to solicit the cost and fees associated with managing treasuries in behalf of the authority.
So Mr. Williams just said.
There we go. Second.
And second, any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
We will shoot for the 20th.
Thank you, sir.
We will.
Williams?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, trustees, it's that time of the year again where we need to discuss the 2022-2023 budget. All of you are aware, but I will remind you that for the prior 2 years, the authority has an actual levy, an approved levy of 1/10,000th of 1 mil, 0.0001. And that was a recommendation that was made in order to sort of be a placeholder on the tax bill. I think last year we were told that countywide would generate $300, I believe is what they said. I really don't even know what was collected, but I think they estimated $300. Now, just to remind you, you have a legal authority to levy up to 3 mills. We've levied the 0.0001, 1/10,000th of a mil for the prior 2 years. You can always, in the public hearing, reduce a millage. Once you certify it on the DR 420, you cannot increase it. These are the principles that are established through the trim law. And our deadline here is like early August. The problem is our meeting in August is past the date, the DR 420, which is where you certify the millage is due, which is why it's on the July agenda. So what I'm specifically asking of the trustees is for you to establish a maximum millage rate for fiscal year 22-23 as it relates to the Lakeshore Hospital Authority.
And set public hearing dates. as well.
We will set the public hearing dates. I was gonna do it separate.
Did we propose the higher one last year? Or
No.
did we just keep the,
Last year we did.
No, basically,
Well-
last year I certified the millage because we did not have a quorum. And of course, based on what Department of Revenue advised, I could certify no more than what was levied the prior year, which was the 1/10,000th of 1 mil.
sorry, that's what I meant.
Yes.
We didn't advertise the higher rate. That was the first time I was
No.
here for the fireworks. But we can always lower it, right? At the last second, we can always snatch the wheel.
Just keep
Okay.
going.
So again, I will do my annual proposal that we ask for 3% because we know we're gonna lower it. But let's cover ourselves in case something comes up that we need some money for. So I say the millage rate at 3%. We got
I'll
two
do my
meetings to lower it.
annual, my annual disagreement. with you. I fully understand the reasoning behind that. However, $20+ million in the bank. I don't see us having a need to levy a mill. I certainly don't want. Because as a reminder, we do get paid nothing for this position, and a few years ago, I got very many phone calls and text messages and emails about what are you doing? Why are you raising the taxes? Because when they get those trim notices, it looks like that's what they're going to be paying. And I understand, and it's easy to say, hey, that's just the maximum. That's not what we, we don't have to go that much. I'm personally not in favor of going that much. But as long as I can afford my number to your number during that time.
That would be fine. And one of the things is people need to be aware of how much it could be. Okay? Now, we know we're gonna come down. But the awareness helps people with their planning on stuff too. I pay attention to that stuff every year. And I look the initial, and then I look at what in actuality I pay.
I'm sorry, was that in the form of motion? I
Yeah,
didn't hear
it
what
was.
You said that you were moving.
link on the agenda.
That
So
was
I couldn't.
motion to advertise the 3% millage rate. Is there a second? Second. Motion would die with lack of a second. Have any other motions?
I would establish that, I would make a motion that the millage rate remain the same in light of, yeah, that the millage rate remain the same as we have it now.
To advertise.
Advertise the 0.0001 mils. I do agree. I don't believe we're not going to need any money. for
Second.
that.
Got a motion, second, and further discussion.
The only discussion that I'd like to have, Ms. Chauncey, is understand the previous motion that you made, but I think the average taxpayer, when they look at that, they want to know what they're paying. They don't want to realize that that could be the maximum. They look at the bottom line figure is what I hear and what my wife says too. So
Well, I fully understand that.
Yeah.
But
I,
then you look at departments that go lower, end up borrowing money,
right,
you know? We have nobody to borrow money from,
right.
no matter what happens.
I agree with you. Another analogy is when I go to the store and look what the regular price is and the sale price. I'm looking at the sale price. I don't care what the regular price is.
Yeah.
So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Aye.
motion carries 2-1. Before you do that, Mr. Coverline, be aware that the link on the agenda to the Zoom meeting does not work. I'm seeing that there is a number that can be called. Which we required to have the Zoom in our advertisement. What is required? Are we required to have the? We know if the link in the advertisement is correct. For this meeting?
It's never not been correct.
It does have,
This, you wrote to me, the link on the agenda does not connect to
Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Call this try it. Doesn't work. If you get an old agenda, you might announce that they could find an old agenda and click on that. That will work. So if somebody's watching and they know somebody that wants to try to log in.
Terribly technically savvy, so I'm not. You're looking at me, I'm like, "Oh." I call in.
Could it be a weather thing?
on mine, it says that the,
Can you please let me into the Zoom meeting? I just clicked on the link on the agenda. Oh, thank you.
Recording in progress.
I should have asked permission if I could attend remotely. I apologize.
If you could just hit 9, raise your hand.
Mr. Williams, the second part of that.
Yeah, and this is also part of the trim requirements, things we have to put on the DR 420, and that is the date of our 2 public hearings. We, of course, have the 12th, which is our regular agenda night, so that's out of the way. But we do need to pick the 2nd, and what we are required to do is to sort of coordinate with the other taxing authorities, and we try to avoid having them all on the same night. So Sonia has prepared you and Cynthia has prepared you a calendar which kind of shows what other authorities or other taxing authorities are doing. And we would like to recommend, because we have to have enough time to advertise between the 1st and 2nd, that you look at the 26th of September as a special call meeting for the purpose of the 2nd budget hearing.
Well, I had in mind, it's 2 weeks later.
And it doesn't conflict with any known taxing authority that we know of.
Does that conflict with anybody else's schedule?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hang on.
Not with mine, but can we all get tired of hearing this, but down the road, can we also use that, Mr. Williams, as another date for a special meeting too?
On the 26th,
Six, yes, sir,
sure,
seeing
it
we're
will be
gonna
a
be here.
special meeting.
But, okay, but we can add to that agenda. other than
Absolutely, you
that.
don't have to do just that.
I'm all in favor.
But Ms. Jansen?
Okay, I have a question. We passed knowledge this meeting. We have a special meeting coming up. That hasn't been published yet, right?
20th.
Why can't we have the second budget meeting previous to that? And then have our third budget meeting previous to our September 12th meeting?
It won't meet the requirements of law. They have specific dates with the window that you have to operate within.
So what's the earliest date that we could meet? And I'm asking because if that conflicts with Ms. Chancey's, could we do it? Well, the 5th would conflict with the city. Oh, no, that's Labor Day. Can we do it?
I think the city's got the first day you can legally do it. I'll go back and check to make sure. But I think that's the first day you can legally do it.
But what about the 29th, Miss Lori?
As far as I know right now, the only other date that I've got is the 26th.
You can't do it,
I
Brandon?
don't think that Wednesday or Thursday, 20th, 29th. might be available.
If we had it a little bit early, I could be here
It has to be at after 5 o'clock.
at 5 o'clock.
I mean, this meeting usually lasts all of 4 minutes, right?
But it won't,
But I'm just saying, if we had to make, for the requirements, you said there's certain dates that it has to
Right.
be, has to fall in between. That's the case if we have to do it. I know that it's not the best thing to come out for a 4-minute meeting, but typically, if we're reading and accepting public comments, be done in 5 minutes. Tuesday the 27th.
Do it the 26th and I'll be late to my.
Anybody else have conflicts? with
No
that?
conflicts with me.
But if we do it on the 26th, we can't have other agenda items then
well,
because of your other meeting.
I'll be late, that's all.
Well,
I'll tell them.
I was just looking at the
I appreciate
26th to load up some other
Yeah.
agenda items that we may want to have.
Chance, you think you could swing that, or
If I have to, yeah.
you need a motion to establish those public hearing dates?
yes, sir.
Establish those public hearing dates.
I have one more question.
Can't remember which ones they
What
are.
if, Dale, what if some of these other people decide to use the same date?
Their deadline for getting their dates in are now over. So
Oh,
if they
okay.
were gonna take them, they should have took them, but the big ones are already on. You can see the city and county ones. Water management's a different story. So, we're the only 4 taxing authorities on the bill.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, we can do a motion to have the,
Establish the public hearing dates.
Establish the public hearing days for September 12th and September 26th respectively.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Of course, y'all know, just to remind you, that'll trigger the ads which go in the paper and you'll see all of that. And it'll say a public hearing is scheduled for, and that's what triggers it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, trustees, for the additions. The first one is I would like for the board to acknowledge receipt and receipt only of the financial report for the period ending September 30th, 2021. There were no findings. I don't know if you've gotten it yet, but I did ask that Sonia send you a copy, and we're also putting one on the authority website. If you have any questions, I'd suggest you call Mr. Powell, or you can see me. I have reviewed it. It's pretty much a clean audit, and but we do need to get it recorded in the minutes as having been received, because I owe a copy to the Auditor General. And I would like to get it to him.
Will Mr. Powell present that to us at a future meeting?
If you would like for him to, he would.
Always helpful to hear.
Well, in our case, particularly since the hospital moved, I mean, it's not in depth.
But it's still 53 pages.
Yeah, well, all the disclaimers and management rights and, all that's required as part of audits. But when you get right down to the financials, I mean, you pretty much see them every meeting anyway. But we'll do whatever the trustees want to do.
Do we need that in motion?
We need to acknowledge receipt of the audit, where I can get it in the minutes and I can get all of this to the Auditor General.
Anybody like to offer a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial report?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, update on a few meetings from our last regular meeting. One is we did meet with the Hope Bridges people concerning the VA transitional housing. We did that on July 5th. I would sort of, from my opinion, characterize the meeting as I do think there is a possible path to contracting with them. Now, that's not to say that there's an agreement ready, and it's not to say that something could not fall apart. But I did not hear anything in the meeting from the discussion and the questions asked that I think you might have issue with, or you would have qualms about. So I do see where there could potentially be a path. And of course, we continue to work toward that. And we're going to discuss this more at the July 20th special meeting. But, we did what you asked. We met. We've advised them that they have an obligation to submit certain records. We told them specifically what those were. They did answer questions, and from that basis, I do see a path where there could be a potential agreement. Again, I'm not saying there will be one. I'm just saying I saw that potential there.
Heard rumor that somebody from the VA was here.
Yes.
So,
The Assistant Deputy Director for the VA state of Florida was here today with them, reviewing the building and looking at it. And so they continue to do their due diligence. We continue to do ours, but the State Assistant Director was here today for about 4 hours with them at the facility. So
Did he sound rather positive?
I think pretty much, as long as, I don't think the problem's the VA, Miss Laurie, if a problem occurs. I think that they have already did what they need to do in order to get a contract from the state. It's really now getting down to what we as an authority board are going to require of them in order to utilize that building. But as far as them getting contracts, which by the way, we will get a copy of, we've asked for that. I think that pretty much is already, they've already worked that out. I think now it's, can we, as an authority, reach an agreement with them on terms for the building?
Who was the person that you mentioned, the person?
I will totally mess up this last name, but it's Bob Asaloff.
And he's with the state of Florida.
He is the Assistant Deputy Director. He's the second in command of the state VA.
We can't have, we're not doing question and answer.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You're good. Thank you.
But anyway, that was my opinion of the meeting with Hope Bridges. So those things continue on, and our next report to you will hopefully be July 20th, about 9 days from now.
Sounds interesting.
Are you saying that you anticipate them having all the information to you by next Wednesday, the 20th?
Yeah, my conversation to them was, look, you know, the ball's really in your court. We are expeditiously trying to bring this to closure. But you've got to provide the requested information where we can finish our due diligence in order that we can come to some understanding.
And this is in reference to what we discussed at the last special meeting, dealing with a lease payment, some sort of
Guarantees.
bond type.
And those were all the things that we covered with them on July 5th. I mean, we've presented all of those three things that the trustees requested. We presented them, we discussed them. We told them in no uncertain terms, you know, we repeated in no uncertain terms, there would be no subsidy from the authority. I don't know how I could have made it any clearer.
There was background
Yes.
informational check. Started on that. Have we?
We have started, but we've not done the deep dive. We can now that we know who the players are. But you know, everybody wanted to do the review of the one individual, which would only give you just a very small part of what the picture is, because there's more than one player here. And we had them identify who those people are. And they need to be part of that review just as much as anybody else.
Questions or comments?
I'm thinking about the calendar, and I know that my colleagues here get tired of listening to me talk about special meetings, but it seems to me like we need to look into August now, because the 20th is next Wednesday, and then the next board meeting is August the 8th, I think it is. And yes, August the 8th. And we may want to have a special meeting in sometime in August, because there's a big gap between August 8th and our September meetings that we have. And we haven't even discussed about the second second level proposers coming in yet. So,
And that's next Wednesday, right?
yeah, that's next Wednesday, but we don't know if we're gonna have to have overflow for those, but I guess I'm getting Mr. Williams, a little anxious.
Well, I don't know that it'll make you feel any better or not, but now the chair has already authorized staff to call special meetings when
Okay.
needed.
Great, that makes me feel good.
The chair said, look, we don't want to wait between regular meetings.
Good.
But now that does mean we have to coordinate with calendars, and we have to coordinate with being able to advertise.
Yes,
But nonetheless, it's not our intent to just wait between regular meetings.
thank you.
Update on raising the building, which was also part of the directive you gave me. We've identified, I don't know, 45 or so vendors that do this type of work. We didn't have to notify all of them. Many of them, apparently they have a clipping service or something. They contacted us. There are some very big companies that do this type of work. I've looked at a number of bid specs. You can imagine they run anywhere from a few paragraphs to a few hundred pages. So I think what my approach is going to be on this, and this was actually recommended to me by one of the companies, is I'm gonna have or request a mandatory pre-bid. And when the vendors come to the pre-bid, I'm going to ask them, what information do you need to bid this job? And that way I can make sure that whatever I may be missing, we capture. I do know that one of the big issues is the county's flow control ordinance. Because I need to know whether I've got to put in the bid spec that there is a flow control ordinance that will impact them for disposal or not. And so I've got some work to do with the county on that before that spec is finalized. But we're going ahead and trying to do this simultaneous with the discussions with Hope Bridges, where we're not losing time if one doesn't work. So just wanted you to know we're moving forward with that proposal. We've talked a little bit about our July 20th special meeting. You are correct. The primary purpose of that is to hear from medical providers in Tier 2. We're working with them. We hope to get that agenda out tomorrow. Now we're also going to try and add on the CDs, which were discussed earlier in the meeting. And so we think we'll have a full agenda for you on July 20th. But the most important part of that is hearing from these Tier 2 providers. So that's what we're hoping to do. Okay. And I wanted to update you. You asked that I go to the city council meeting. I attended that on July 5th. I did two things. One is I tried to give a brief update as to where we were as it related to our efforts here. And I invited, of course, the city to participate in any of these conversations in any way they saw fit, because whatever we do here is going to impact the city. I think that's obvious. Specifically, though, as it relates to the lots, I did ask for them to transfer the lots back to the authority. They were nice, they were cordial, but they did not take any action on that other than to say what I had previously told you. They were waiting to seat a city manager, and they at least wanted to get through their initial conversations about their final plans. I think most all of them sort of acknowledged, or at least I got the sense from them, that they did not think they would be using those lots. But before they said, let's go ahead and give them back, deed them back, we need to have the conversation about specifically what we're going to do as a city, just to make sure. And they're supposed to start having that conversation soon.
One thing that a comment that I heard, I believe it's Councilman Sampson. And his understanding, whatever council person it was, their understanding was that because the word parking was also included in that. But if I'm not mistaken, the reverter clause said that if they don't start construction on a city hall. Now, I understand that some of those lots were to be used for parking, but that reverter clause, if I'm correct, clearly said if they don't construct a city hall. Doesn't mean they can use those 12 lots for parking.
I didn't take that to mean an either or. You can do either or. And I do recall that Mr. Sampson made that comment. But I think you're correct. The way I read it and the way it was explained to me is, it's there for a city hall and all the appurtenances that go with the city hall. So obviously, if they do build a city hall, they need lots for parking. But if you remove the city hall, I don't think the parking on it on its own satisfies the requirements of the agreement. But that's me.
It's my understanding as well. I just wanted that to be.
When are they supposed to start their city hall? According to our agreement.
Well, they have until 24, the year 20, I forgot the month.
February, I believe it was.
It's in 2024. And of course, they, of course, since they asked for the lots, the city purchased the Millennium Bank properties downtown. And they are talking about exactly the best way to use those. They are talking about effectively what to do about City Hall. They've kind of come, 360 degrees. I kind of understand now that they're actually looking at the possibility of revisiting what does it take to fix the City Hall we're in, that kind of thing. So it's obvious they're going through a process of trying to identify what's best for them. But I don't think we're going to be able to ask for the lots back, or at least we're not going to be able to get them back until they know for sure what their plan of action is. Any questions about that?
Or was there one more update that you had? Is there another update that you had for new business?
I give up. On this one, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think so.
I was trying to write down all of them that you had, and I think that was it. But I
Oh,
just
all
wanted
right.
to make sure it was.
Yeah, I think I've got them covered.
We have no unfinished business this evening.
Update on legal.
Here's the update, and just to refresh everybody's memory, of course, we did reach out to Fred Senior and we reached out to Marlon because of their experience, and they both have other projects. They have other directions they're going, so we've already talked about that. Just as I told you before, I took the Florida Gateway College offering and plagiarized it as an RFP. So if you've read the RFP for Florida Gateway College, you can kind of get a sense or a feel as to how the authorities reads. And the responses are going to be due August 15th. August 15th. But as soon as we get that cleaned up and all the changes made, I'm pretty sure Sonia will get you a copy of that.
Staff reports included in the agenda package. Closing comments, Ms. Chancy.
I would like to address Garrett for just a minute. Garrett, I agree with a great deal of what you had to say. But I think this board operates for us. And what we believe the community needs that we can offer, which is very limited in spiritual realm. But in a moral realm, it is very, very broad. And we don't always achieve the greatest, but we try hard. And I would admire you for your spirituality and doing what you do. And thank you for coming to our meetings. Okay. And also, the other thing I wanted to tell you, the playground over here, we helped with that. Okay.
I like that. I swing out there a lot. I love the area. like I said, fell in love with it, just even during the COVID time, just being around. It's a hotbed. People are doing all various activities, from fishing, walking their dog, exercising, people watching, however you get your feel, whatever. But I think so too, and there's a lot of morality to it, but there has to be, you have transformation and then have a renewal of mind and a transformed heart. It has to come out to the hope of glory, which is Christ. And I'm not saying just to have a church, just for the sake of have a church.
Yes.
We have a lot of churches. So,
Sorry, we're not gonna, we can't,
oh, okay.
not during public comments.
I wanted to hear him.
We can talk after the meeting. as long as you want.
If any of you guys have any questions, I would love, and I thank you, Ms. Canty.
Kennedy,
None.
Cynthia, do you have anything for us this evening? Mr. Copeland?
I want to thank the board for letting everyone attend virtually and remotely.
Our agenda, or excuse me, our advertisements, do we have, is it? I know there was question a few meetings ago about if the link or if something were to not work in that link, since we are backside of COVID, I want to continue offering participation in meetings virtually. But are we required to, or can we change it where if for some reason there is some sort of interruption, we don't have to to stop the meeting, reschedule the meeting? Is it verbiage in the advertisement that we offer this? However, it is not an absolute substitution for being in person. If somebody has, in other words, if somebody has technical difficulties, and even if it's found out to be something on our network or whatever it may be that caused those, we don't have to stop our meeting and reschedule that meeting. I want to continue offering it. Is my question probably not very clear? Is it?
You started it a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long one.
Brad, didn't we change the
Hold on, I
verb
got another question.
on that? So we're good. We did that, right?
Meeting in just a moment for your comments.
You know, at the comments.
It's one at a time, Fred. If you can answer mine first. I'd
I wrote them
appreciate
down in order here. There's nothing wrong.
You need another pen.
What was, could you start over with your question?
it. Are we required to provide a good connection of the virtual meeting for online virtual attendees? Or is our advertisement worded where if for some reason there's a technical difficulty, that we can continue our meetings without having to stop the meetings or find them null and void and reschedule and redo that business?
You asked me and so you gave me an option. I'm gonna address it. I'm gonna pick both of them. If that's okay with you.
However you care to respond to that.
Okay.
I'll leave that.
I didn't want to leave one. I didn't want to prioritize one over the other. So if you don't mind, I'll address both.
Thank you.
Okay. The state law does not require you to make the meetings accessible through virtual platforms. Depending on the verbiage of your announcements and depending on the type of meeting you're holding, then you may or may not need to stop your meeting. In a meeting like this, you would not have to stop it because this is not the type of quasi judicial meeting that is required to stop virtual platforms. Now, as far as your notice of general meetings, your notices on general meetings do not mandate you to stop your meetings such as this.
So okay. Thank you. Was that both? Did you answer both of my questions?
I did, and I added a little bit to the second
A
question.
little jazz.
I hope I didn't confuse them.
Again, I want
You
to
want
make
me
it
to start
clear.
over?
No, please. I'm very happy that we do this and I want to continue doing it, but I just don't want us to ever be in a situation where our meeting cannot go forward or is found to be outside of the law. So I remember there was discussion about changing the verbiage in the notice. So I'm glad to hear that that's the case, and I'm glad that we are still offering these virtual meetings and hope to continue to do so. And another shout out to Carl for always keeping us on the up and up. Douglas, were you just recording all
No, I was actually just laughing.
that? Okay.
No, I'll refrain from any further comment.
Mr. Williams,
I'm good.
I told you I'd give you an opportunity.
I'm
Better
good,
make it
thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Entertain the motion for
What
adjournment.
about Cynthia?
I asked if she passed.
I have a two-part question.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.